The only known slave to make it to freedom only to be extradited back to the United States is from right here in northwest Arkansas. Nelson Hackett lived in Fayetteville before he made his trek across the northern border into Canada. Historians with the University of Arkansas say it's his escape, then recapture, that put into motion the events that ended slavery.
Nelson Hackett really exemplifies the American story of pursuit of freedom and love of family.
It's an American story written in part in Fayetteville.
It's a really global story that puts northwest Arkansas on the map.
Once enslaved in the northwest corner of Arkansas, Nelson Hackett made his escape to freedom in the summer of 1841.
So Nelson Hackett left Fayetteville. He crossed the Mississippi River up in Marion City, Missouri, and Quincy, Illinois.
Hackett made it all the way to Chatham, about 50 miles east of Detroit in what's now Ontario, Canada.
The miles and miles of slave territory that Nelson Hackett crossed, crossing a whole national border into Canada, was that sheer will and desire.
University of Arkansas historians Drs. Carrie Banton and Michael Pierce have researched Hackett's every known move.
This is a deed book for Washington County, and Washington County has one of the oldest collection of deeds west of the Mississippi. Leaving Fayetteville, he took a hat, a coat, a gold watch, a chain, a horse.
These items would end up costing him his freedom. They belonged to Alfred Wallace, who owned Hackett, according to this bill of sale in the Washington County Archives. When Wallace learned of Hackett's whereabouts, he had him arrested and demanded he be sent back to the U.S., but the Canadians refused without extradition papers from Arkansas.
His fate was debated in the British Parliament and the Canadian Colonial Assembly.
Back in Washington County, a grand jury publicly indicted Hackett on theft charges.
Alfred Wallace's old friend, Archibald Yell, is governor of Arkansas at the time, makes a formal request to the Canadian authorities for extradition.
The Canadian government obliged.
He was the only enslaved person from the U.S. that the British authorities in Canada sent back to slavery.
Back in the hands of his slave owners, Hackett was publicly whipped hundreds of times. Drs. Banton and Pierce say it was a way to send this message to fellow slaves.
If you escape,
this is what will happen to you.
We will go up to Canada and we will go 1,000 miles and we will spend an immense amount of money and we will get you back here.
Hackett was then sold to a slave dealer in what was known as the Republic of Texas to be worked to death. But it's rumored he once again broke free.
When you're a historian, especially working in the 19th century or even earlier, you have to live with fair degrees of uncertainty.
Hackett's story goes far beyond one man's fight for freedom.
What Nelson Hackett does in 1841 is put into motion the events that allow black people to escape.
And it's the escape of the enslaved, the historians say, that put into motion the sectional crisis that contributed to the start of the Civil War and ultimately the abolition of slavery.
It was black people who voted with their feet. They took freedom into their own hands, and it forced other people to take actions, to either pass laws or to get on board.
Hackett unknowingly risked his life to save thousands of others.
Through his actions, he put into motion the events that led to Canada saying never again. No more black people, no more enslaved people will be returned to bondage.
Nelson Hackett's name is one that will live on here in Fayetteville. Recently, city council members voted to change the name of this street from Archibald Yell Boulevard to Nelson Hackett Boulevard. Here in the downtown square is where Hackett's slave owner is said to have owned a store where he likely worked. A plaque detailing his story is set to go up here in the flower bed in front of the Bank of Fayetteville.
And it will get to take up space in a place that was once slavery, where Hackett name and body was once enslaved. He can now be seen and read in this liberated light.
Memorializing a man whose pursuit of freedom prompted a much bigger movement.
We can look at someone like Nelson Hackett and say, if he can do that and travel all those hundreds of miles just to breathe free air, we can accomplish our wildest dreams.
Doctors Pierce and Banton have documented Hackett's life and journey with fellow U of A colleagues as part of the Nelson Hackett Project. I encourage you, go check it out. We have a link for you right now on knwa.com.